So it seems like Sony is interested in buying Mortal Kombat. Now, we're going to jump into this article, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all this stuff. This is going to be pretty interesting, and it's still a big if, right? This is not a set in stone thing yet, but we need to keep our eyes on this, and I'm going to be keeping a close watch on this because it's something that, Mortal Kombat as a franchise means a lot to me, and I just don't think that NetherRealm has done a great job in recent years with the franchise. And like I said, we're going to get into that stuff, but let's look at this article. So WB Games just restructured. Like the news was coming out today that like they were restructuring into their WB Games division into 4 franchises, which was like Game of Thrones, Mortal Kombat, and a couple others. So I think it's like DC Universe, stuff like here we go. So they are restructuring, creating new divisions based on its key gaming franchises. They'll be focused on Mortal Kombat, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and the DC Universe, of course. So anyway, this says Sony. This is from Insider Gaming, by the way. Sony reportedly interested in buying Warner Brothers Games assets. Now, there was some rumors floating around this past year that this might be a thing because WB Games has just not been doing great. I mean, what was it? Multiverses just didn't really do that great. They've had different games that just, like Suicide, all their DC games just aren't hitting lately. Suicide Squad game or whatever just was terrible. And amongst a lot of other problems, a lot of internal issues with leadership and things like that. Like, it's just kind of been a shit show at WB for quite a while now. So seeing news like this is not necessarily surprising, but let's get into this. So Sony is exploring the idea of buying their various gaming assets that, according to a new report that surfaced this week, according to this, Sony is interested in buying their not only their game assets, but streaming. It says streaming and studio assets. Those assets would include the company's HBO Max streaming service, its various IPs, and the gaming assets. We're really only focused on the gaming assets on this channel, and we're going to get into that. It says, sources said Sony was only interested in acquiring Warner Brothers streaming studio and gaming assets if they were separated from its cable networks, which have lost millions of homes as viewers abandon traditional cable packages. Of course, times are changing. There's better TV on the internet and YouTube and everything else anyway. Nobody fucking watches cable anymore. And then Warner Brothers Discovery, that's what WBD is, announced on June 9th that it was splitting its company into 2 separate entities, WB Streaming and WBD Global Networks. The split, which is scheduled to be completed by mid-2026, would see all of the company's linear assets such as TNT Sports, CNN, and Discovery under the Global Networks wing, and streaming and studios include HBO Max games, production studios, and more. Then that was then followed up on June 17th with the news that Warner Brothers Games was restructuring to focus on the aforementioned franchises. Insider Gaming has reached out, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's why I want to bring this up and talk about this, right? Because they have... I don't want to mess with this too much. So here's the thing. WB Games, right, is, Mortal Kombat 1, obviously. This is something that is everyone knows. Everyone knows that, WB has had NetherRealm Studios and Mortal Kombat for a long, long time. And MKX was probably Mortal Kombat's most peak moment, like, ever. Like, I grew up with the OG stuff, Super Nintendo, the arcade scene, stuff like that. So I was there as a teenager seeing the arcade scene unfold with fighting games, Mortal Kombat being at the peak of that with Street Fighter, Killer Instinct, and other, franchises and stuff, all the Tekkens and the, Virtua Fighters and just you name it, right? Marvel versus Capcom, obviously. So it's, MKX is an amazing, amazing title. But that year when that came out, which I believe was 2014 into 2015. No, I think it was April of 2014, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. It could have been 2015. But that game absolutely had It was like the most peak that Mortal Kombat's probably ever been in terms of gameplay. The graphics at the time were awesome. It was their kind of bookend to, I'm sorry, the middle of the road, entry for, you had MK9, which was kind of the reboot of the franchise on the 360. Then you had MKX, and then you had MK11, and then they rebooted everything with MK1. MKX holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts, but 2014, 2015, when MKX was coming out, that was what I believe to be kind of the start of the downfall of the Mortal Kombat franchise. It's a really difficult argument when you look at the sales numbers, right? Because Mortal Kombat 11, if I'm not mistaken, sold more than any other Mortal Kombat in history. Mortal Kombat 11, visually speaking, was incredible. Very, very awesome graphics, beautiful artwork, with all the carnage and everything else. Costumes were really over-designed and very Injustice-y. Obviously, they were coming off of Injustice, making that game, and or Injustice 2, I mean. And it just, I don't know, but MK11, everyone knows. Everyone who's an FGC fan, everyone knows MK11's gameplay is ass. It is totally, it's literally slow motion. Like, even Maximilian, dude, who's one of my favorite creators in the space, of all time, even he will tell you, when you go back and try to play MK11, it's literally like playing on slow motion. It's insane how slow they made that game. And yet, for whatever reason, it sold the most. And I think it's a lot to do with the story mode and how they executed the story aspects and things like that. There's a lot to love with MK11. There really is. It's not my favorite title. I can't stand it because of the gameplay. Because at the end of the day, when you go in to play Mortal Kombat, especially coming off of MKX, dude, holy crap. It's like MKX is dialed up to 100 on speed, combo potential. The skill ceiling is insane. It was a very broken game, too. Certain characters had crazy broken bullshit with, Alien's acid form or whatever. His acid, I forget what they call it, where you select the 3 different modes of the character that you can use to change up the movesets. But coming off of MKX, MK11 was crazy slow. And it took a long time for people to kind of put up with it and deal with it. And, at the same time, the story mode was, really good. Plus, you had a lot of great guest characters and stuff like that. MK11 did very well. I mean, you had freaking Spawn. You had, I don't even know. And then you had the MK movie 95 skins with, Christopher Lambert and, that kind of stuff. So, and freaking Kerry Tagawa, Shang Tsung himself. Your soul is mine. That's it. It was just, there was so much fan service, and it was just, there's a lot to love about MK11, but at the core of it, when you go to sit down and play, that's where it breaks down, right? And any of the SDC fans will totally agree with that. That's when it was at its worst, is when you actually tried to play it, because it was just so slow. And then we roll into MK1. There was a lot of hype going into MK1, but very quickly people discovered that this cameo system is something that, nobody really asked for. It's a clunky mess. It's not really a tag fighter. If you're going to do a tag fighter, this is not the way most people would want it done. The cameo system, on paper, it sounds really good, right? On paper, it sounds really cool. In practice, it just doesn't work as well. And I've seen more people complain about that system than people that like it. And then we have to kind of address the elephant in the room, that is the art style and some of the design decisions and just the direction of the studio in general. So MK1 is, in certain aspects, really pretty on the art. Obviously, graphic fidelity is not in question. It's a very high graphical fidelity game, but this is Mortal Kombat. In Mortal Kombat 1, the story with Liu Kang kind of reshaping the universe in his image of peace and everything, with that came a lot of stages and character art that are just very bright and colorful and happy. And That's just not Mortal Kombat. I don't think fundamentally it's a direction that fans probably would have wanted to go. I mean, you can reboot the franchise like it needed a reboot, right? That's just like how it worked out chronologically. But that particular direction, I don't think a lot of fans would have voted for if they had a vote, is just what I'm saying. And it is. Like, some of the stages are very dark and gritty and gory, but like a lot of them are very, like, it's just, it's kind of the same situation if you ever played Diablo 3. Like, if you're coming off Diablo 2 and then Diablo 3 finally comes out, a decade later or however long it was, Diablo 3 came out and was just rainbow color palette, just, not darks, dark colors, grays, blacks, and dark reds. Like, it was every color being utilized in the spectrum. Mortal Kombat 1 did essentially the same thing. You're coming off of MKX, which had a very great color tone and thematic, like theme going on. MK11 was very colorful, but MK1 takes colorful to the next level, man. And it's just too much. It's just too much. A lot of fans don't dig it. It just doesn't feel like Mortal Kombat when you play it a lot of times. The gameplay is somewhere in between MKX and MK11. It's nowhere near as fast as MKX, but it's nowhere near as slow as MK11. At least now it is. When MK1 first came out, it was definitely too slow and closer to MK11, but they did speed it up due to fan feedback. Good on them for doing that, all of that stuff. But still, MK1 just with the cameo system, the colorful art, and just some of the design decisions, and then the story is just not really that exciting of a story. It definitely did not hype people up the way MK11 story did. MK11 story mode was actually pretty hard, act to follow, honestly. It was, MK11 story, especially the second, the DLC with Shang Tsung and everything. This is like really good storytelling. Granted, in MK1, they did lead, they came off of MK11 story pretty seamlessly. Like, it seemed like, oh, this totally makes sense. Like, this is the direction they would go. I think the problem is just thematically, like, that ideal is not the most appealing to most fans. That's just me saying that. I could be wrong, guys. Let me know in the comments. I don't know. But MK1 specifically is just, there's just a lot about it that a lot of fans don't like. And a lot of fans, myself included, feel like something with NetherRealm and their leadership and just the direction that the MK franchise has gone in recent years, basically since MKX. Like, after MKX, it's just been downhill, man. Like a gradual downhill, not a plummet, but like a gradual downhill. And now it's gotten to the point where I hope this happens. I hate to be the guy that says it, and I love Ed Boon, right? Ed Boon's attached to Mortal Kombat, of course. I'm not saying I want to take away Mortal Kombat from Ed Boon, but I am saying I want the Mortal Kombat franchise to go to a different developer. I'm actually tired of NetherRealm being in control of that IP. I would love to see this happen and Sony go in and like just restructure NetherRealm, or potentially just, you know what they should do? Here's what they should do. And I'm curious what your thoughts are in the comments on this one. I think Sony should buy them, and they should go in and they should reorg the shit out of that whole place. And they should say, all right, here, NetherRealm Studios. NetherRealm Studios is only going to be making DC Comics video games moving forward. Period. The end. We are going to take Mortal Kombat from you, and we're going to give it to somebody else. Like, I want that to happen so bad. Like, they just have lost. I just think they've lost it. I think they've lost their touch with Mortal Kombat. I really do. I think there's too much kind of political woke like stuff that's like seeped in under the sheets, if you will, with Mortal Kombat in a lot of ways artistically, that is just not what fucking fans want. We don't want some of this visual innuendo or visual subliminal messaging fucking chalked into Mortal Kombat. We don't want it. And anyone who has a brain knows exactly what I'm fucking talking about. I'm not trying to make this video political, so that's all I'm going to say on the subject. But aside from that, the actual design of the game, the cameo system, how the gameplay works with MK11, how fucking slow it is, just all, the horrible story of MK1, and some of the guest characters taking up slots of characters that most FGC fans would probably want instead of what they gave us. Like, look, Omni-Man's cool, Invincible's cool. I'm not hating on that so much, but like some of these guest characters, like fucking Ghostface from Scream, bro, really? Like, there's so many other, characters that fans would want instead. And I understand it's not that easy. It's like a licensing battle, right? Like, they try to battle for licensing rights. Like, I think there's a interview that Ed Boon did several times talking about they want to get like Michael Myers from Halloween, and they just could never get the license for it. So like, I do understand the licensing battle. Like, it's not just like, hey, we fans want what we want and we're going to get it. No, that's not how it works. But you get what I'm saying. Like, there's definitely like a lot of guest characters that people would want over the ones they've given us over the years. And that's not saying that all the picks are bad. They're not. I mean, like Conan, I don't know why we got Conan, right? I could have thought of a million other characters we should have got instead of Conan. And fucking who knows, man. Like, get Fulgore from Killer Instinct. Get Doom Guy from, get the Doom Slayer. Get, like, characters that make sense to be in Mortal Kombat, And I wish they would work with Capcom and, like, get Street Fighter and do a Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat. Like, that would be, bro, that's the dream, right? Every FGC fan, that's the dream. But, like, let's be honest, no one's going to let us do a fatality on freaking Ryu. It's just not going to happen. So as much as we would like it to, it's not going to happen. But I'm saying that, like, I really hope this happens because I would love to see NetherRealm just move on from Mortal Kombat. Like, I want somebody else to touch Mortal Kombat. And if it's Sony, here's an interesting thing we'll kind of end on is if it's Sony, if Sony goes in there and they buy WB and they own Mortal Kombat and all these other IPs, this opens up the potential for a Japanese developer to get their hands on the Mortal Kombat IP. Now, this is not a very far-fetched idea because, as y'all just saw, Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, I think is the new name of the new Marvel tag fighting game that came out. Arc System Works is making that. Everyone looked at that and said, yo, did Capcom pass the torch for the MVC? What is that? We still don't know the answer to that, but no one's mad about it because it's Arc System Works and they're freaking sick. And looking at that trailer, it looked hype as all hell. And it's like, imagine a Japanese developer, whether it's Capcom or Arc System Works, pick or an Asian developer, someone that's not NetherRealm, right? Like who is it that makes Grand Blue Fantasy Versus? Or you could get someone like them. You could get wow. Imagine if Tekken creators, imagine if the people that make Tekken got a hold of Mortal Kombat. Like, what would they do with it? Look, I don't want Mortal Kombat made in RE Engine personally. If I was going to pick a Japanese developer, it'd probably be like Arc System Works. I'd be very interested to see that. But honestly, like, my whole point of all of this rant is, like, I just want somebody else to take over Mortal Kombat. Like, for God's sakes. Like, I don't inherently hate what NetherRealm has done for Mortal Kombat. I really don't. But since, like, MK11 and MK1, I don't really care for those titles. I don't. And I don't think I think NetherRealm has lost their touch with the franchise. I mean, ever since MKX, it's just been downhill. Yo, MK9 on the 360 is god tier. MKX is god tier. And everything, past, maybe not some of the 3D era games, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, Mortal Kombat's legacy needs to be preserved, and I just don't think NetherRealm is up to the task anymore, man. So I will say, if Sony goes in there and they, if they go in there and they restructure and all that shit and maybe, hopefully, give Mortal Kombat off to somebody else, I hope that they send Ed Boon with them, just him, not anybody else, not Tyler, not fucking Steve, not all those other people, like just Ed. right? If you send Mortal Kombat off to another developer, attach Ed and maybe John Tobias with them, and leave the rest of NetherRealm and let them make DCU games. Let them do that shit. So that's the end of my rant on that. I hope you enjoyed it, man. Let me know what you think in the comments about all of this stuff. It gets a little controversial. I get it, and that's fine. Hey, it is what it is, man. It's 2025, man. We gotta evolve. We gotta adapt. We gotta move on. I think Mortal Kombat needs a new home, and you tell me in the comments what you think about it. I appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. More on the way. I'm gonna definitely keep up with this and keep you guys informed. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.